Welcome to Instruction Discussion, our weekly look at the latest topics and trends in education affecting schools here on Long Island and schools around the world. Whether you're a teacher, parent, or student, listen for tips and strategies to help you navigate the educational landscape. There's a bell. It's time to start today's Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello, I'm Kevin Boston Hill, and welcome to Instruction Discussion, where each week we will examine a recent trend or development in education and its impact on Long Island. Generations of students will tell you that they have heard all their lives that in order to be successful, they have to get good grades, go to a good school, and get a good job. The problem is that no one tells them just what that looks like or how to do it. So by the time they graduate high school or even college, a great number of students are left asking the question, now what? The book Question Everything, Advice for Students and Graduates by Kenny Glenn provides a blueprint that answers the question, now what? Before students even get to that point. Through vivid examples, Question Everything provides students a way to get the good grades, to go to the good school, and to get that good job. Along the way, they will find that success is more about the questions they are willing to ask than the answers that they are given. To further delve into this book and convince our students to question everything, today we welcome to the classroom the book's author, Kenny Glenn. Mr. Glenn, welcome to Instruction Discussion on 90.3 WHPC.
Thank you for having me. Hey, that was a fantastic introduction.
Oh, well, thank you. You need to take me on the road with you to do all your marketing. That's fine.
Absolutely. I need to put you on payroll.
But let's go ahead and kind of get right into this. And first, for full disclosure to our audience members who are listening, Mr. Glenn is a member of my fraternity, my beloved fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi. And of course, we did just celebrate our 113th year of existence. So so there may be some points throughout this conversation that I may allude to some of that work that we have done collectively within our communities. So first, I will start off with belated Happy Founders Day, Brother Glenn. And I hope you...
Yes, sir. Same to you, brother.
And I hope you served it, and I hope you spent it well.
Absolutely. Yo to the good news.
There we go. So let's go ahead and get right into the book itself. And tell us a little bit, what was your motivation for actually writing this book?
Great question. Many motivations. One of them being wanting to leave a legacy. So I know that one day we won't be on this physical plane. And so in the year 3024, I want somehow, some way, my ideas to still be here. And so writing a book was a way to immortalize myself. But then speaking of the self, I wanted to give my younger self practical and relatable advice. And I knew I could not encapsulate my amazing life story in those short but long 25 years into one podcast episode or into one speech. And so the book was a way to kind of get it all out. And knowing I wanted to transition into becoming a professional speaker, speaking to teenagers and young adults, the book would assist with that platform as well as enhance my message. So, as a speaker, I know that the crowd or my audience is going to remember 10% of what I say a week after they hear me speak. And so the book adds to whatever I was saying during the speech, and it's something they can always reference back and highlight, take notes in within themselves, and inspire them to write their own book.
Well, is that last piece that I'm going to focus on just briefly, because I think that's kind of the extra piece that some people may not think about getting out of this particular book. And that is being able to express themselves and find their own way of expression or a way to immortalize themselves going forward. So I think writing a book is always a good way of doing that, because that's going to be something that's always going to be here. And having this example that you put out there, I think will help people, especially younger people, to be able to look into that particular medium for themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, too many, I would say people in general, I won't just say youth, feel like in the year 3000, I'm just going to go back to his Instagram. Maybe, but maybe not. All right. And so when we think about, matter of fact, yesterday was Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
That's right.
So he wrote, I believe, 4 books. All right. And so many people that we aspire to be and become authors, right? Or they were so amazing that people wrote stories about them. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say you're absolutely right that when it comes to the written word, we tend to now in this age of technology, we tend to go by just video and whatever we post really quickly on Instagram or on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. But it's the written word that is everlasting. I mean, we go back in throughout time, and you can see that there are all of these writings that we look at between books and magazines and others of things of the nature, that it's the written word that stands the test of time, and that's always going to be around. So I think, again, having this extra medium to express oneself is going to be something that's going to always be there. Podcasts are great, and we'll be able to listen to those as well, but it's always having just that written word that is going to, that just has something extra special attached to it.
Exactly.
Again, let's talk a little bit more. I think because within the book itself, you state, or the book states, children or students and graduates should seek specialized knowledge and then find creative ways to leverage it to get what they want and to achieve their definition of success. So to me, on the surface, this kind of sounds like students don't necessarily need to go to school to achieve their goals. So can you elaborate a little bit on what you actually meant when you penned that particular phrase?
For sure. Yep. I am pro-education, but that does not necessarily mean pro-schooling. So school is not for everybody, and everybody essentially just does not make it through. But those that do, it serves as a great benefit. And the greatest benefit is exactly how we connected through networking, right? We are connected through a social fraternity, right? And that's mainly the greatest thing about college or school in general, is the network, right? I just graduated 10 years ago, and I don't really remember what we talked about in class, but I remember the people. Let's say somebody wanted to be a videographer. Do they necessarily need to go to school in order to enhance their skills? The answer to that is no, because what they could do is trial and error, buy a camera and just play around with it. And it's all right, now I've gotten really good at it. Or use YouTube University, or find and pay a mentor. Hey, can you show me how to get really good at this videography thing? And then as they continue to grow their experience and clientele, now they create a quote unquote successful business or company. All right. But even within that, the person has to define success for themselves, right? Not what the world tells them that success is. Because in the intro, you talked about get good grades and then get into a good school and then get into a good job. All right. But what does good really mean? And it should be based on an individual, not societal. And so there are many ways to gain knowledge, specifically specialized knowledge. It just depends on what the person needs and what they want.
You know, that's a good point that you raised, that you're pro-education, but not necessarily pro-schooling. And I think if we find or look at the distinct differences between those two terms, that's where we really come into what we're talking about, that what this book is talking about. Yes, education is not just within the four walls, and right, exactly, that a school would provide you. Education is anywhere you can find it. I mean, you mentioned YouTube University, which a lot of people go. Even people who are professionals go onto YouTube. Well, I need to learn something quick, so let me go onto YouTube and find a video and show me how to do these things. So I think and we also now have these micro credentials, so that you're not in a school setting for 3-4 years to earn a degree. You may be in a classroom or a virtual setting for 3 or 4 sessions, and you get this little micro degree, this micro credential that says you earned or you learned these particular skills, these specific skills for something. And that seems to be the way that a lot of people are going today. For sure.
Yeah. But I won't discredit school because of the great networking aspect, and it forces you to be disciplined.
Yes.
All right. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're essentially going to fail the class and you're wasting money. All right. So what I'm not saying is, Kenny Glenn said, don't go to school, so I'm not going to go. But then you still don't utilize your time and resources wisely. All right, I'm going to just sit around and do nothing. I was like, no, you still need to go out and learn some stuff. Even college graduates still have to continue to learn. All right, first sentence on the back of my book is school and education are not the same thing. All right, so you stated school education is not just within those four walls. Right, and the word education comes from the word educo, which means to pull out. And so, in order to be truly educated, you need to do what's necessary to pull out the best that's within inside of you. And school may not necessarily do that, and it's on us to gain self knowledge and not just rely on certain curriculums or the school system in general.
So let me ask you this then, since we are both kind of on the same page here as far as what education actually is or what it should be. So in your mind, what are some courses that you feel should be taught at the high school level to prepare students for life after high school? Because we all know that some students may not go to college, some students may, but we want them to be ready for whatever life has to offer them when they get out of high school. So are there any particular classes that you would envision that all high school students should take?
A multitude of classes: professionalism, entrepreneurship, how to deal with emotions, and life skills. All right, those would be the main classes that Kenny Glenn would probably teach if he was a classroom teacher. Because let's think about entrepreneurship. Once you graduate from high school, you become the CEO of your life. All right, whether you go get an LLC or not, how much money you make, that's up to you. Personal branding. All right, businesses also brand. All right, businesses also have employees and partners. People have friends and associates. Right, so the personal side and business side are very much related. And if people knew more about business, right, they would conduct themselves differently, but then also understand how the world works. Or I'm rewatching the news, I wonder why that happened and why they vote for such and such. I was like, hey, you got to look at the business aspects behind it, right? Same with individuals. From my professionalism standpoint, all right, too many high school graduates don't know what to wear, don't know what to say, don't know how to even send an email, right? Just effective communication in general, because especially today's youth, so used to just texting or looking at captions on Instagram. It's like, how do you actually present yourself? One, so from a attire standpoint, how do you articulate what you're truly trying to say in a professional way, right? Whether that's vocally as well as just something as simple as an email. And I'll say simple in quotations because, right, it's not something I was taught in high school, but I didn't learn it fully until I was a junior in college, which is kind of way too late in my opinion, because that's something that a high school student should know. Because say I didn't go to college. Now, where do I learn that? Yes, I could take it upon myself and Google it, which I still recommend people to do, but that's something that should be taught in school. I talked about how to handle your emotions. All right, that's something that we definitely weren't taught. Maybe it's being taught today, but even the I'll call it a theory that there are 22 different emotions. And so when you don't know how that are 22 emotions, you don't even know how to articulate how you're feeling. And so when people do not know how to articulate how they're feeling, we go into being a baby again. And the baby's emotions are either happy, sad, or angry. All right, because you can't get the words out of how you truly feel, you're going to resort to that. And most of the time it's anger. And when people make decisions out of anger, it gets them into trouble. All right, but it's something that school didn't teach us when it comes to emotions. And then just life skills in general. All right. I know the general thing that I've heard since I was in high school was, man, you should have taught me how to do taxes. All right. But just understand the importance of decision making, like who you marry, or back to emotions and life skills, not making decisions based out of emotions. So when I turn 18, I'm moving out of my parents' house because they're getting on my nerves. Like, is that the best financial decision right now? Like, I know you're upset that they're kind of annoying, but right, you move out and now you're grinding 25/8 just to pay rent, right? And so you're kind of hustling backwards in a sense. Like, you have your quote unquote freedom, but what if you could have had a grown up conversation with your parents, stayed home, saved some money, and then moved out, right? Because when you rush into the professional world, now you don't really get the time to think, what is it that I truly want to do, right? You're just trying to make money instead of align and find your passion and purpose.
You are listening to Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Kevin Boston Hill, and our guest today is the author of the book, Question Everything, Advice for Students and Graduates, Mr. Kenny Glenn. It's interesting that you state that, because that's something that I think students really need to understand as far as all those different courses that you were talking about. As far as entrepreneurship, they may not necessarily need to have to start their own business, but they should have that set of qualities as far as being a self-starter, being a self-determinant, and so forth. They should also, communication skills is always going to be a top skill that employers look for, because you have to be able to write not just using emojis or in shorthand in text speak, but in long form to be able to get your points across, especially when you start writing reports and things that you need to send out to people and prospectus and so forth. Those, you can't abbreviate those. Those have to be in long form. When you start thinking about, again, those life skills and the social emotional piece of it, schools are starting to look into social emotional learning and so forth, but from a very myopic viewpoint, and not necessarily how students should be able to associate with each other outside of school, but schools just focus on how you're going to work with each other in school, how you deal with those conflicts in school, not how you deal with your inner conflict and so forth. So I think all those areas that you just touched on are extremely important for our students to get to know, and those should be taught alongside the algebra and the history and sciences and those courses as well. So I think we may need to have a complete overhaul of our educational system. What do you think?
I agree.
I know that was a lot.
And our curriculum certainly needs to be upgraded and updated. Just being more relatable and relevant, right? Relevant to the times and culture of the student population.
So,
that's my answer to that.
Yeah, you talk about education needs to be relevant to the times and student population. Well, we know that students are tied to their digital devices, and I also noticed that this book right now is not available in Kindle or other digital formats. So, was that purposely done, and if so, why?
Yes, fully done on purpose, because we spend way too much time on our digital devices as is. And so I am a conscious capitalist, right? We live in a capitalist society, so we have to make money. And I sell the book. But if I was just super money hungry only, and that's not to say I eventually won't have it digitally, but knowing that we spend too much time on digital devices and wanting people to get off of them and take a break, only putting the book out for print and support you of your device. Right? You're not going to worry about a notification popping up while you're reading a book. It's just paper and ink. So just forcing people to get off of their devices. That's the reason why the book was only available in print for right now.
No, I think I commend you for that, because it's real important. I also believe that it's important for us to kind of become reacquainted with the physical book and the pages, to kind of feel the ink on the page and understand what it's like to actually flip a page and the dog ear a page when you want to pause and to do something. So I think those aspects become, and then of course it's just a lot easier on the eyes, because looking at a digital screen all day, it tends to really wear down your vision somewhat. So I think it's really important. You're doing everybody a service, really, to have them come off of their devices and to actually pick up your book to gain that knowledge that you have within there.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, you said it. Drains our vision, drains our energy. I think it's a scientific fact that it drains our magnesium, which we already don't have enough of. So yeah, as much as we can get off our digital devices and still learn some stuff and propel our lives forward, the better.
Let me also ask you this, and this may sound almost like I'm being a therapist here, but because I noticed at the end of each chapter, or within each chapter, you kind of write a personal note to your younger self. So is that note for the young people who are reading the book, or is it more for your current self as a way to kind of speak to yourself and to, I guess, to find your own personal way, your own personal journey to see how you've developed through this journey. So is it for the younger people reading the book, or is it kind of therapy for yourself to understand how you've traversed this journey?
Yeah, great question. The answer to that is both. And the adults who read the book, right? So the subliminal message in the subtitle, students and graduates, we will always be students because we're constantly learning throughout life, and then we will continue to graduate to new levels. All right. And that is separate from school, right? You're still a student of life. And let's say, right, you're a young man and you graduate into fatherhood, or you graduate into being a husband, right? And then even within those titles, there's levels in those. But it's both, right? So I'm giving advice to the young people who read it, but then to my literal younger self and my current self. So, a Dear Kenny passage says, Kenny, remember to love yourself and not be too wrapped up in the pains of others. That's something that I have to continue to say to myself, and I see adults still struggle with. All right, like, you have to love yourself, and in loving yourself, you grow your confidence. And that's something that I continue to use to this day. And many of the other phrases of advice or passages of advice that I give in the Dear Kennys.
Excellent. So, but also looking at what we talked about earlier in this conversation is how it can be how the book can be a model for other people when they're writing. So I think that when people are writing their own books and cementing their own legacies, and we'll talk about legacy again in a moment, but when they're trying to cement their own legacy and writing their own books, it might be good for them to follow that model as far as kind of writing that little note to their younger self, writing that note on how they've actually adapted to, again, this journey that they're going on themselves. So I think, again, the book has a lot of different ways, a lot of different avenues that people can pick from it that will help them along their own personal journeys. Yes,
sir. I appreciate that. Now, my secret sauce when I'm on stage, the question I always ask is, all right, what's a 2-word phrase of advice you would give to your younger self? Right. And so I hear all types of examples like take risks, be confident, stop procrastinating, trust God. Right. Just so many different 2-word phrases. But the reason why I force people to use 2 words is to confine it. Right. So I'm not just there for 3 hours. But then also there's a reason they chose those 2 words, because those 2 words can easily turn into a sentence. Just can turn into a paragraph, so much deeper than just 2 words that somebody would give to their younger self in terms of advice, right? And if I gave different words and different prompts, it would force people to think about different things they would tell their younger self. All right, so whether it came to finances, relationships, school, mistakes, all right, decisions, like all of those things, like, all right, what would I tell younger me? It was like, okay. And that's an easy way to get into the flow state of writing.
Excellent. Because we talk a lot about legacy. And of course, within our fraternity, we're always training for leadership. And of course, our motto is achievement through every field of human endeavor. So why is it important that students and graduates or whomever really understand that concept of legacy at an early age?
Yeah, the importance of that, I'll use the personal story first, is I was getting in a lot of trouble in school at one point in time. Me and my dad look just alike and have the same name. So when I kept getting embarrassing me like this, and that's something I never thought about. I was like, we look just alike and we have the same name. So by me acting out, now I'm kind of tarnishing his reputation and his legacy because, right, Kenny Glenn is a great person, but I don't know so much about the dad side because his kid can't stop acting out. Right. And so the earlier kids understand the importance of legacy, they'll know that it will open the door for themselves, but also for others when it comes to certain opportunities in life. Right. So my friends, family, fraternity brothers, mentors, mentees get access to certain experiences and things because of things that I've done and just being who I am. And so if you carry yourself in a way where you care about others and those that come after you or around you, then you'll understand the importance of legacy.
Okay, exactly. And I think it's, like you said, is really important for students to understand what their place is. Yes, they're going to be judged based on themselves as an individual, but they're also going to be based on who they represent, because they're bigger, is bigger than themselves. They're not just representing themselves, but they're representing their entire family that they belong to. So
absolutely.
I understand also that you were a college athlete. So what would you tell the athletes who are listening, whether they're high school or younger, how should they prepare going to college?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say is, yes, you are an athlete, but don't get so wrapped up in that identity. And so remember that, and it's something I struggled with even when I was a professional athlete. You are a human first, athlete second. All right. And so you actually have emotions. You do need to rest. All right. You can't just be out here grinding 25/8, especially when you go on social media. Oh, they working out today. Or, man, what would Kobe do? It was like, hey, you got to sit down and rest and recharge. But from a practical standpoint, all right, get ready for a strict schedule. There's going to be times when your sport becomes top priority. All right. So you may feel, I'm here for school. It's like, yes, you are, but think about who and what entity is paying for your school, right? So that's football, basketball, track even. And it's like, all right, I got this football game or practice, basketball game, practice, track meet, like, but I got this exam. I was like, hey, or you may have to have a conversation with your professor and say, I have this duty, right, an obligation to do great in my sport. And so I kind of have to put school on the back burner for right now. All right, so maybe it's taking the test early, maybe it's taking the test late, but just know that that's going to happen. Utilize your network to the fullest. So being an athlete, you kind of become a celebrity on campus, and don't shy away from that. Use it to your benefit for, all right, we talked about legacy, later opportunities. All right, so if you're talking and networking with everybody on campus, when you're eventually no longer an athlete, now you can come back and there's so many opportunities that will be available to you because you actually spoke and utilized your platform and position as a student athlete when you could. Also, all right, get ready and or learn how to say no to the many, many distractions that will come.
I get you. So all these things, the excellent advice that we can pick up from the book, Question Everything. And we would certainly like to thank our guest today, author of the book, Question Everything, Advice for Students and Graduates, Mr. Kenny Glenn, for coming on to our show. Once again, my name is Kevin Boston Hill, and thank you all for listening to Instruction Discussion right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.